So I'm going to start off with, at the time, I was living in this area. Let me start over. So at the time, I had been living on my own for the first time. So I want to apologize to the San Antonio Police Department near Prue Road. I had dropped off, or I'd stopped by earlier last year after, I don't remember what month in particular of 2019, but it was after the 4th of July. I had stopped by, written a handwritten statement, and there's a few things that I didn't realize at the time. Number one, I might have gotten the year wrong. I don't deny I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I deal with headaches and migraines. I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain. I deal with memory deficits and cognitive disorders. And I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. While I understand that does not assist in some ways, hopefully it assists in others, at least for understanding at least. So the apartments that I lived in, which are off of USAA Boulevard, it was the first time that I had lived by myself. It was during the first separation. My daughter, I think she was either 2 or 3, and my son was either 3 or 4, which means it could have been either 2004, 2005, or 2006. I know that's probably not helpful, but maybe I know it narrows it down. I have to preface that because it was the first time I had ever lived on my own outside of the military base. Because I had my house in, it was off of Heritage Place Drive, I still went there on a daily basis, with the exception of Saturdays and Sundays. So I was able to still get my mail at the house in San Antonio. I had not changed my driver's license. And so I have to give that preface for the understanding in regard to what I had written up. I think I have done a video prior, but I also had not known that there was hacking or stalking or any of that, whether it was online, through a landline, through a cell phone, whatever it was. At that time, I had already left being any part of the Jade Wolf Coven. I hadn't been involved with them for a while. I also hadn't been involved with Thomas Marsden, which Christine of the Jade Wolf Coven felt like getting involved with, which that is what it is. I know it was after the turn of the year, so it could have actually been 2005 or possibly early 2006. Reason why I bring that up is because my now dead ex-husband we had gotten back together briefly, and it was towards the end of my lease in that apartment complex, so it was whatever the following year was. I know it was after the new year, but I don't remember what month. I did attempt to call 911. However, I also didn't know about anybody being stupid enough to prevent something like that. I mean, seriously, there's a reason for 911. And I personally hold whoever did that responsible as an accomplice. because of the reality of knowing now that the female was murdered. And so whether or not they knew the people involved assisting that sort of a crime, I would guesstimate whether they knew or not. I think it's called involuntary assistance or something like that. And so on top of whatever else. That being said, I did not only not get a driver's license for that address, because of going to the houses, I did. The other aspect was I didn't look like I do now. I had my natural hair color, brown about to here, maybe a little bit shorter at that time. Didn't have any tattoos, and I smoked regular cigarettes. I don't remember the apartment number, but I know the patio faced the apartment front office area parking lot. To verify that it was my apartment, there was a card table. It's medium-ish blue. 3 or 4 folding chairs on that patio, and then I used a coffee can as my cigarette ashtray. No, it was not a, what is it? When people cheat on their spouse, they get an apartment and then like leave it like that. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. I'm sure that's figured out by now. However, I'm going to state that for clarification. I bring up the point in reference to Christine of the Jade Wolf Coven, her husband having been Mike at the time and then having 3 children, as well as Thomas Marsden, because shortly before then, by about a month or so, had been the last time they were in my apartment complex, in my apartment, and it was not necessarily the prettiest ending. So it was one of those, I don't, bye-bye, sort of things. And certain items that I owned had gone missing. Because those items went missing, and there was no reason for them to go missing at all. Not at all. That would be the only individuals who had access to my apartment with my knowledge when I was there, I should say, would be Christine of the Jade Wolf Coven, Jamie of the Jade Wolf Coven. I already explained Christine. Jamie, well, she's dead now, apparently. But she was married to Stephen and they had a son together. Maybe, possibly a second child. And then there was Tina. She had Tourette's. And then Thomas Thomas Marsden. His grandfather was in the Air Force, and all of them essentially at some point in time were involved in the pagan and BDSM communities. My now dead ex-husband did, when I was moving in, have access, but not without my permission, as far as a lot of things were concerned. And there had only been one other individual who had been inside of my apartment, which, other than Mike, I do admit, I've explained that before, but there was a male named Wesley who was allowed into the apartment. We had talked, nothing had happened or transpired. Literally, he fell asleep, and that was the end of that, but nothing further at all whatsoever. So if anything in that techie stuff, that's what I got there for that particular aspect. Point being, there was a night, I put it in writing, the description of the vehicle, black SUV, I think it was an Escalade. I know that there was white writing on the tires. Again, my my apartment patio faced the parking lot in front of the front office, and it was on the second floor. Where I sat usually was in the corner where the tree was, or is, unless the tree moved, or was taken down. But I basically sat there. Anytime I'd go, I'd smoke. I tend to sit in a corner facing outward. At that time, it was more convenient because of the way the sun rose and set, and then the way the animals would go into the tree and stuff like that. It wasn't an issue for me. One night, I was outside smoking, as I did, and as you see, I do. I have insomnia right now. It is 6:15 in the morning. However, on the 21st of April 2020, however, back then was no different. The only difference was I would sit outside and smoke cigarettes instead of e-cigarettes. So, that might have been a question as to who, that'd be me. I had given in either my military ID to get the lease and or my driver's license, which would have, as I said, remained with the address on Heritage. So, I apologize for being difficult in that aspect, but I did call 911. I had to go inside of the apartment because when I saw the Escalade pull in, as I described in writing, as I may have done a video before, there was screaming towards the back area of the trunk. There was white lettering and numbering on the tires. It wasn't white wall, but those who know what I mean when at night a black car with white lettering of the tire maker. It looks like white wall tires, but it's not. And so, at least when the wheels are moving past a certain speed. And so, especially at night. At least that's what I've noticed. Anyway, so the Escalade-looking vehicle pulled in. The back end was bouncing almost like hydraulics, but not. There was a muffled scream coming from the back, and then and I apologized to the family. I didn't mean to make you guys getting just as difficult. I do apologize. As soon as I saw that, heard that, and then I noticed a group of individuals going towards the push-button fence on the other side of the office building. So there was where my apartment building was, so when you face the apartment complex office to the right. But to the left, there was another gate or door. And there was also a fence over there for vehicle entry, but they went in that way, and then they went off diagonally. Anyway, the screaming was muffled even as the group of males, I assume, I guesstimate, with one female. It was dark, I don't deny that, but the female sound I couldn't help but notice. I moved to go inside very quickly, but as quietly as I could, because I would use a screen door to keep out the bugs, obviously. But I wouldn't put the light on the back patio on when I was smoking at night. Those who live in the state of Texas understand when it comes to June bugs. Ew. Ew. And light does, at times, attract bugs, especially at night. So I went in to the apartment as quietly as I could, despite seeing all of the people leave the vehicle going into that vicinity. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. But I wanted to get to the cordless phone, which that I do apologize as well, because I did not remember to inform the front office staff of that phone number. So the only number they had was the house line to where my house was. I did try calling, or I did call 911. The female that was on the phone line, no matter what I explained, and I went into, so I kept the cordless phone on the kitchen counter. I grabbed the cordless phone and I went towards my bedroom, which is where I kept one of my swords. I like sharp items. It is what it is. Anyway, I had a very large sword. It was 32, 35 inches, broad width, double-edged. Was not light at all, and I had sharpened it. Very, extremely sharp. Extremely sharp. I have a tendency to do that. Even the little notches at an angle, like even that was, it was brutal. Sorry. Kind of proud of that, because that little section right there, along with the long portion, kind of difficult without messing it up or chipping anything. So just had to. Anyway, I called 911. I kept the lights off. I didn't change any of the lighting, just for safety precautions. I tried explaining to the female that was on 911, and instead of the police showing up at all, and again, I don't know if there was a car accident that was really bad. I don't know if they were all out doing something else, but I did call. And I explained all sorts of stuff, and then the female 911 operator said, "Are you sure that that's what you saw? Are you sure that's what you heard?" Yeah, no, I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. Yeah, like, this is an emergency. Are you sure you're not being over dramatic? Why are you asking me that on a 911 phone call? I mean, seriously. Not trying to be rude, but, there is someone who genuinely needs help and assistance right now. I can only do so much at this moment. And that particular female 911 operator was not assistive, wanted to talk instead of get the information to get to the police. I told her she needed to get the police immediately. Female 911 operator did not want to listen. At all. It seemed like she just wanted to hang out, and it's like, no, this is not the phone number to call for, hanging out. This is the number to call. It's 911 for emergency purposes. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just, it is what it is. And instead of the female 911 operator telling me that the police were on the way, after about 10-15 minutes speaking with that female, I hung up the phone. I figured me hanging up the phone meant she would, actually send the police out. Because in New Jersey, if you call 911, they show up. Like, if you call 911, you hang up the phone, and you don't pick up the phone, if there was no callback. So it was one of those, okay, that must mean that they're going to be out here. And number two, like, if you don't if you don't answer, if they call back, they show up. That's it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And while I understand in the new state of New Jersey is different than the state of Texas, I had thought that it would be a little bit different. Or exactly the same. At most, a little bit different. They would call like once or twice. There was no callback. There was nothing. I waited on that patio holding my sword, ready to go, for hours. And I know it was hours because I started seeing the sunrise. That's how long I waited. I started seeing the change in the color of the sky. And albeit there was a point in time where I no longer heard the screams. Again, I apologize to the family. There was a point where she didn't feel anything anymore. It just stopped. That's all I could do. But that 911 female operator just didn't do her job. If it was, and not, like somebody being stupid and playing with the 911 phone call like it was a game when it wasn't at all. A few days later, after taking my children to school and doing the stuff that was considered normal at that time, I returned back to my apartment, and I got along with the elderly females that were on the first floor. And I don't remember who the neighbor was across the hallway, but we had spoken a few times. And when I walked towards the pathway, and I usually parked out in the main area, both elderly females had said, "Hey, did you hear what happened a couple nights ago?" What happened? There was a murder. What do you mean there was a murder? And again, I apologize. The head injury with the memory stuff and the cognitive stuff, and not trying to make it any worse for the family. I was kind of dealing with some stuff, and not saying that you guys weren't at all, not minimizing it at all. Just I was trying, and I didn't click. It didn't hit me to pay. It just didn't make sense, but it stuck with me. It did. It was one of those something. I just kept thinking about. It's like why is this something? That's all I could think. Something. And so, couple of days from that, I talked with my neighbor at my house, despite not living there, and told her what occurred at the apartment complex. And she asked me if I was scared. I was like, I know how to defend myself if I have to. You don't want to come into my apartment and think you're not going to deal with some stuff. Don't make that mistake. Do not make that mistake at all. There's some stuff you're going, and you're not going to leave. Not breathing, at least. You're not going to leave breathing. I promise that. And she kind of laughed, and it's like, no, I'm serious. You don't want to break in. Like, it would be stupid to do that. Because, yeah, if you force your way through the door, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty at all. It's self-defense. So, I had another week went by, and I had already earned my Reiki Master teacher. I already had, but my teacher, who had finalized that attunement, had said that he had a special bottle of honey mead for me as a gift and like a congratulations sort of thing. But because it took a while because of Ren Fair and stuff like that, that was why it essentially had to wait. So, okay. Cool. So, I drove out, I think it's to Bandera, or on Bandera. Something. I know it's on Route 16, past 1604. By about like 45 minutes. And then you got to turn and, drive on the mountain and stuff like that. Or, for Texas, a mountain. After being in Washington State and Montana, hill, but in the state of Texas is in Montana, It's a mountain. I did feel that altitude popping thing for the ears, though, I admit that. But anyway, on my way out there, I was driving. I had the van, and still didn't remember. I don't deny that, but I had something caught my attention in the back seat through the rear view mirror, mother's eye thing. And I look, and okay, that's definitely a spirit. Okay, and long hair, about essentially where my sleeves are, fairly straight. A little bit of a wave, not too much, not curly. Bangs, about to here. Kind of a oval heart type shape face. And it wasn't something I wasn't accustomed to. I've been seeing spirits well before my head injury. But it was extremely distinctively a spirit. Okay. It's different. Not usually in the car. That I admit, like when driving, didn't usually have that. And it was just one of those. Now looking back, my car was out in the front parking lot, so that does make sense to me at this point. It does. But just one of those, okay. Can I help you? Like, those who are mediums understand something like that. And can I help you? What's going on? And I did describe this in my first book. I did. Finding a Silver Lining. And the spirit essentially flew forward, screaming, very much like a banshee. Clothes were tattered, clothes were ripped. I could see where there were stab marks in different areas of her etherical body. It didn't dawn on me then. And her teeth went from, well, initially I didn't see her teeth. Initially her mouth was closed. And then the only way I could really describe her teeth when she screamed and flew out was essentially very similar to when at Disney in Florida, and the sharp teeth, kind of like an anglerfish.
Not to be mean to the family and friends that knew her, that's just the way the spirit came through because of being angry and upset. Understandably so.
And so, flew out and was like, huh, that's different. I've had certain situations occur that is different. Kind of still sticks out to this day, obviously. And so I got to Joe's place on top of the hill, and I was like, and when I got out of my car and got into his house, he looked at me and he's like, "You look like you saw a ghost." And I said, "I did." I did. I don't understand what occurred. I mean, I've seen spirits before, just, no, you called it right on the nose. You did. You did. And he was just, "What do you mean?" So I explained that. And he said, "Oh, that's actually just a figure of speech." Yeah, no, that actually just happened. Yeah, it was once I passed 1604, past the first set of lights. That was about the time that she appeared, and that was I've been trying to calm myself down since then. But yes, I did. Just, oh, my God, okay. So here's the honey meat. Oh, okay. And so, but I did discuss that with several people well before putting it into writing. I don't remember the address specifically, but it's the when you are on Huebner Road, and whichever way you turn in from Huebner Road onto USA Boulevard, it is the first apartment complex on your right. And again, when facing the apartment building office, there's the entrance gate to the right, and then there's an apartment building right on the other side of the fence. And it was the one on the top, because it's only 2-story. And I think it was a redbud tree that was over there. Although it was kind of bigger, so it could have been a crepe myrtle. But it was, it was ideally positioned where I could sit in the corner and nobody could see me. One of the few times I actually camouflaged. Or camoed, however. And so, I know my children were either 2 or 3, and 3 and 4, or 3 or 4 and 4 or 5. So that gives you the years. My son was born in 2001, and my daughter was born in 2002. So, yeah. That is a description that fits certain things. I did leave my phone number with the police officers at the Prue Road location, and I have gone to the San Antonio FBI, so they know where I'm at, and they've updated driver's license. I apologize, I wasn't trying to be difficult at all. I really don't try to be difficult. My life is difficult as it is with the head injury stuff. So I don't need to make it any more difficult for anybody, especially myself. No offense, not trying to sound rude or selfish, just the reality. So, but I did put that in the first book. And so, whether that when putting through the Library Congress, it set off some red flags, and or when sending the books out after getting them printed through Amazon, sent out some red flags on that in particular. There's my testimony, and I obviously don't look like the way I did before. I mean, I still have my face. It's still my face. Still, my bone structure and all that stuff. But yeah, I didn't have this haircut, color, new tattoos at that point. And so I could actually camo, but not now. I cannot camo now. So, hopefully that helps. If that hasn't already been taken care of. If that's already been taken care of, then I apologize to the family and friends who knew her. I genuinely do. I genuinely apologize either way, because I did try to call 911. I had no idea about, people who would be dumb enough to do something like that. I'm playing with that. Just seems stupid. So, however, if not, and that gives some assistance, then there's that assistance. So, have a good morning.